The Central Intelligence Agency is not what it pretends to be. To most Americans, it is an organization dedicated to intelligence gathering, safeguarding national security, and thwarting foreign adversaries. In reality, it is a rogue paramilitary empire, funded by drug money, protected by legal loopholes, and governed not by the Constitution, but by its own shadowy network of power. It does not serve the people of the United States. It serves a global cabal of monarchs, oligarchs, and criminals who use deception, coercion, and outright assassination to maintain their dominion over the world. To understand the CIA is to understand the nature of power itself. This is an institution that has mastered the art of manipulation, having inherited its methods from an empire that has been perfecting them for centuries. It is an organization that can blackmail a president into submission, use criminals and terrorists as puppets to accomplish its goals, and execute operations so sophisticated that the public never realizes they were orchestrated at all. It is a modern-day extension of the same imperial machine that crushed nations, engineered wars, and enslaved billions under different flags, always operating in the shadows. The story of the CIA does not begin in Washington, D.C. It begins in London. To fully grasp the origins of the CIA, one must examine the British intelligence apparatus that gave birth to it. The British Empire never truly ended. It merely adapted, cloaking itself behind multinational corporations, intelligence agencies, and financial institutions. MI6, Britain's secret intelligence service, was the world's first true modern spy agency. Its methods of infiltration, deception, and psychological warfare were refined over centuries of imperial rule. British intelligence established the CIA during World War II, training American operatives in sabotage, disinformation, and black operations. The OSS, the precursor to the CIA, was constructed in the image of MI6. When the war ended, British intelligence did not relinquish its grip over its American counterpart. Instead, it struck a deal. The CIA would be its proxy, its enforcer in the Western Hemisphere, just as the East India Company had once been its economic enforcer in Asia. The United States, the world's emerging superpower, was now shackled to an invisible master. Through this arrangement, the CIA gained legal cover for its criminal enterprises. The British monarchy, with its ancient legal privileges, provided the ultimate protection. Under international agreements, foreign intelligence agencies could operate within each other's borders with impunity. The CIA could not conduct illegal domestic operations without scrutiny, but MI6 could, and vice versa. This unholy partnership meant that both agencies were free to carry out black ops on American soil without ever answering to Congress, law enforcement, or the courts. And so, with the blessing of the British Crown, the CIA grew into an untouchable beast. It evolved from an intelligence gathering agency into an international crime syndicate, running a global network of assassinations, arms dealing, drug trafficking, and mind control operations. The CIA does not rely on congressional funding alone. It could not sustain its vast empire of secret wars, media manipulation, and paramilitary operations on government budgets alone. It needed something more. It needed black money, vast pools of untraceable, tax-free cash to bankroll its empire. And so the agency turned to the three most profitable illegal industries in the world: drugs, weapons, and human trafficking. From the 1960s onward, the CIA became the world's largest drug cartel. It used American military power to protect heroin production in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, then repeated the same strategy in Afghanistan, where the U.S. occupation saw an explosion in global opium supply. The agency cultivated relationships with Latin American cartels in the 1980s, funneling cocaine into American cities in exchange for cash to fund its proxy wars. The crack epidemic that decimated black communities in the United States was not a tragic accident, it was engineered. But the drug trade was only one piece of the puzzle. The CIA also became one of the world's biggest arms dealers, arming militant groups, warlords, and terrorist organizations across the globe. The same government that claims to fight terrorism is, in reality, its most prolific sponsor. ISIS, the Mujahideen, Al-Qaeda, these organizations did not emerge in a vacuum. They were trained, armed, and funded by Western intelligence agencies. The pattern is always the same: create the enemy, destabilize the region, and justify endless military intervention. And then there is the darkest secret of all: human trafficking. The CIA does not merely tolerate the global slave trade, it facilitates it. The Epstein scandal was not about one man. It was about an entire blackmail operation designed to control the world's elite. Billionaires, politicians, and royals were ensnared, photographed, and recorded in compromising positions, ensuring their eternal obedience. Epstein was not a rogue actor. He was an intelligence asset. His island was a honey trap, a carefully constructed system for ensuring that the rich and powerful remained subservient to their handlers. The most insidious weapon in the CIA's arsenal is not guns or bombs. It is psychological warfare. The agency has invested more in controlling the human mind than any other organization in history. MKUltra, the CIA's infamous mind control program, was only the beginning. Though officially shut down in the 1970s, its research has continued under different names. Today, the CIA does not need LSD and electric shock therapy to manipulate the masses. It has perfected digital mind control. Big tech companies, social media algorithms, and mass surveillance programs are the new tools of oppression. Every click, every search, every phone call is recorded, analyzed, and used to shape public perception. The CIA understands human psychology better than most psychologists. It knows what makes people angry, what makes them afraid, what makes them obey. The agency has weaponized neuroscience, developing sophisticated techniques to induce emotions, plant ideas, and even alter belief systems. It does not need to assassinate dissidents when it can simply discredit them. It does not need to stage coups when it can manufacture revolutions. And when all else fails, it can simply bombard its enemies with frequencies, microwaves, and subliminal media, scrambling their minds, driving them to insanity, and making them destroy themselves. The CIA is not an American institution. It is not accountable to the people, the Constitution, or even the President. It is an autonomous entity, a predator that feeds on nations and thrives on deception. It serves the interests of a hidden elite, a network of monarchs, bankers, and corporate overlords who have ruled the world from the shadows for centuries. The wars it starts are not about freedom or security. They are about profit and control. The crises it manufactures are not accidents. They are calculated moves in a grand chess game. The world is not governed by elected officials but by an unseen hand, and the CIA is its weapon. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is an open secret, hidden in plain sight. The truth is out there, but most people are too hypnotized to see it. The CIA does not fear exposure. It counts on apathy. It does not need to silence everyone who speaks the truth because it knows that the truth, no matter how shocking, will be ignored by those who refuse to believe it. But for those willing to see, the pattern is clear. The agency's fingerprints are everywhere. Its influence undeniable. The question is not whether the CIA is engaged in global deception. The question is, how much longer will the world allow it to continue? The Central Intelligence Agency does not simply respond to global conflicts, it creates them. It thrives on chaos because disorder allows it to expand its influence, justify its budget, and entrench its control over the United States and the world. There is no profit in peace, only in perpetual war. While the American public is led to believe that the United States wages war to protect democracy and freedom, the reality is far more sinister. Wars are business ventures, orchestrated by the CIA and its allies in the military-industrial complex. The goal is not victory, but the maintenance of an endless conflict cycle, one that ensures arms manufacturers, private military contractors, and intelligence agencies remain indispensable. The most powerful people on Earth do not care who wins or loses a war. What matters is that the fighting never stops. The blueprint is always the same. Identify a resource-rich region or a strategically important nation, covertly destabilize it, fund opposition groups, and then justify intervention under the guise of humanitarianism or counterterrorism. The CIA has refined this strategy to near perfection. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, each war was built on deception. The CIA plants the seeds of conflict long before the first shot is fired. False flag operations, media manipulation, and covert provocations ensure that the public supports military intervention without realizing they have been manipulated into demanding it. The United States did not invade Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. The CIA knew those claims were fabricated. The war was about control of oil, control of military contracts, control of the global economic system. The same logic applied to Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi's real crime was not tyranny, but his attempt to establish an African gold-backed currency that would threaten Western financial dominance. He had to be removed, and the CIA made sure it happened. The CIA's true expertise is in overthrowing governments. When a nation refuses to submit to the global financial order, it is targeted for regime change. The methods vary, but the objective remains the same: replace independent leaders with puppet regimes that answer to Washington and London. The Maidan coup in Ukraine back in 2014 was a textbook example. Ukraine, long a geopolitical chess piece between the West and Russia, had a government that refused to fully align with NATO and the EU. This was, well, unacceptable to the CIA, which orchestrated mass protests, used covert snipers to incite violence, and ultimately forced the democratically elected president, Viktor Yanukovych, to flee. The result? A puppet government that has obediently served US and NATO interests ever since, escalating tensions with Russia and ensuring a profitable war industry. The CIA has done this countless times. In Iran in 1953, it overthrew Prime Minister Mossadegh for nationalizing oil. In Chile in 1973, it backed Pinochet's brutal coup to crush socialist policies that threatened American corporate interests. In countless nations, from Guatemala to Indonesia, from the Congo to Venezuela, the agency has used a mix of assassinations, bribery, and psychological warfare to install friendly regimes. The playbook is simple. Identify a leader who refuses to be controlled. Fund opposition groups, student movements, and media propaganda. Orchestrate false flag attacks to justify action. Encourage military defections and stage a coup. If all else fails, assassinate the target. This is not speculation. It is historical fact, revealed in declassified CIA documents and first-hand accounts from former operatives. The agency does not just interfere in elections, it manufactures governments from the ground up. The CIA is not merely an intelligence agency, it is a propaganda machine. It controls the narrative, dictates public perception, and ensures that its crimes remain hidden in plain sight. This is achieved through Operation Mockingbird, a decades-long initiative to infiltrate and control the mainstream media. While the official story is that the program ended in the 1970s, the truth is far more disturbing. It never stopped. Instead, it evolved. Today's media does not report the news, it engineers it. Major news networks, social media platforms, and Hollywood itself function as tools of psychological warfare, designed to manipulate the masses into accepting CIA narratives without question. Every major conflict, every political scandal, every so-called conspiracy theory is filtered through a system designed to manufacture public consent. The playbook is as follows. If the CIA wants a war, the media drums up fear. If the CIA wants a leader removed, the media paints them as a dictator. If the CIA wants to cover its tracks, the media discredits whistleblowers. The journalists who refuse to play along are silenced. Gary Webb, who exposed the CIA's role in the crack epidemic, was suicided with 2 bullets to the head. Julian Assange, who revealed U.S. war crimes, rots in prison while actual war criminals walk free. The message is clear: expose the machine and the machine will destroy you. The CIA's dream has always been total control, not just of governments, but of the human mind itself. The rise of digital technology has made this dream a reality. Today, the CIA does not need secret informants or spy planes to gather intelligence. It has Facebook, Google, and Amazon. Every search query, every social media post, every voice command is recorded, analyzed, and fed into artificial intelligence systems designed to predict and control behavior. Mass surveillance is not about security, it is about power. The more the CIA knows about a person, the easier they are to manipulate. They do not need to imprison dissidents if they can simply deplatform them, erase their online existence, and render them unemployable. The final step in this process is direct neurological control. Technologies like transcranial magnetic stimulation and microwave frequency manipulation are not science fiction. They are active research programs funded by the Pentagon and DARPA. The goal is not just to monitor thoughts, but to alter them. Imagine a world where dissent is impossible, not because people are afraid to speak, but because their very thoughts have been hijacked before they can form. This is not a future possibility, it is happening now. The tools are in place, the infrastructure has been built. The only thing standing in the way is mass awareness. The CIA has operated for nearly a century without real oversight, answering to no one but the hidden power structures that sustain it. It is a rogue empire within an empire, a government above the government. It cannot be reformed, because it was never designed to serve the public interest. It cannot be dismantled through conventional means, because it controls the very institutions that would be tasked with dismantling it. The only way to destroy the CIA is to strip it of its power by exposing its true nature to the world. That is why it fights so hard against transparency. That is why it demonizes whistleblowers. That is why it wages war against independent media, alternative platforms, and truth-tellers of every kind. The question is no longer whether the CIA is corrupt. That is a given. The question is, will the people wake up before it is too late? Or will they remain in the trance, obedient to an illusion of democracy while an unelected cabal engineers their reality from the shadows? History has shown that empires built on deception do not last forever. The CIA, like the British Empire before it, will fall. The only question is how much destruction it will cause before it does.